Welcome to the MemberWise Best Practice series. This video is brought to you today by the MemberWise Network, the leading free-to-join best practice network for membership and association professionals. We hope that you enjoy this great presentation, and for further information about our growing network, please visit www.memberwise.org.uk.
Thanks, Richard. So as Richard says, my name's Ian Pritchard. I'm one of the three partners at Adapta Consulting. I can see a couple of friendly faces in the room. For people that don't know enough about us, then actually we do have a stand just outside the door there. So do come and talk to us about what we do and the organisations that we work with. In short, we're an independent consultancy. We're an independent information systems consultancy. We work exclusively with membership organisations, as well as charities and trusts and others in the not-for-profit sector. And we help organisations like Girlguiding through whatever part of the journey they're on. As we'll hear in a minute from Amanda, the journey that Girlguiding UK took was quite a long and actually in the end thrilling one, from paper-based systems to a digital world. And so I'm very much looking forward to hearing what Amanda's going to be saying in a minute. Just before we do that, though, I've got one question that I wanted to get an answer to from the audience. So I think it's going to come up on the slide in a second. Let me see if I've got a thing here. Here we go. The main thing that we work on with the organisations that we help is really organisational readiness and change grounded in technology. And so the questions, whatever they are, very often just boil down to this one, really. At what point the organisation feels ready, in the case of a CRM system, to implement a new one. So I was just interested really to get a sense from the audience about where you would say your organisations are. Some organisations ready to go, some already there, others thinking about it. So I just wonder, just in terms of organisational readiness and how you think your organisation would feel about embarking on the kind of journey we're going to hear about in a minute, and where you'd say that was. So if you could press your buttons for whether you think your organisation would be, broadly speaking, ready, broadly speaking, not, abstain. That'd be quite good. I don't know how the answers come up now. Do the answers come up? Does anybody press? Oh, there we go. No? See technology sometimes. Oh, here we go. Okay, well, while that's waiting to happen, I think we don't want to waste too much time because I know that Amanda's got a lot of really good stuff to share. So I'm going to step aside now and leave the overwhelming majority of the remainder of this session to Amanda to talk about Girlguiding UK's experience.
So good morning and thank you for coming to the session. I'm also going to start with a question, a little experiment really, and I'm going to, I think, use the old-fashioned method of asking people to put their hands up. So the question for me is, if you're female, have you ever been a member of Girlguiding? And if you're male, do you have a relative who's ever been a rainbow brownie or guide? Could you put your hands up? Okay, and maybe to look around at how many people have got their hands up. Thank you. Because the answer should reveal that roughly half the adult female population in the UK have been a member of Girlguiding at some point in their lives. 1 in 5 7-year-olds is currently a brownie. The scale of our membership is vast. We have 500,000 young people in the UK and 60,000 adult volunteers. We're larger than the Scouts and we're the largest female-only organisation in the UK. In the next 15 or so minutes, I'm going to take you for a little stroll through our project. You might see some hidden gems in the slides, and these are things that were really important to us and really helped us. Well, we'll go through the highlights, the difficulties, things we had to cope with and deal with. And I'd just say it was a bit of a roller coaster, even if Ian described it as thrilling. For me, it was more a roller coaster. So it all began with preparations for our centenary in 2010. We embarked on a decade of renewal from 2000, and we began with totally renewing our youth programme, our youth activities, our leader training, our uniforms, our resources. Girlguiding UK is divided, organised, I suppose, in 9 countries and regions. Originally, it was the 4 countries of the UK, and back in 1974, England divided into 6 regions. And the reason for that division into regions was solely around administration and record keeping. Guiding is governed by a royal charter in the UK, which means that we choose to associate. We have a strong culture around the psychology of persuasion, and we're not really a command and control type organisation. Our trustees committed to renewal, and we chose to use that word rather than change. As explained, we started with the programme for the girls, and well, what we didn't start with was systems and structures. And this meant that when we did move to systems, we already had a good deal of buy-in from the members to the idea of renewal. Firstly, we had buy-in because people had been through a big rollout. They'd been through the youth programme rollout, and they knew that we could all do it. And secondly, the people involved had been involved in large projects already, successful projects within Girlguiding UK, and they had a high level of credibility with the trustee board. And so, this is our roadmap of the project, Project Streamline. I'm kind of amazed that I could get it on one slide, having lived through it, but there it is, the roadmap. I'm going to describe some of the highlights on this slide and then look at some key aspects in the next few slides. There were some external drivers that meant Project Streamline needed to happen. It was a period when child protection was becoming more prominent, and the central organisation didn't know where our young members were or who they were. We only knew about the adult members, and in terms of children, we only counted them once a year. Their details were only held at a local unit level. It was a period where we felt we needed to know our membership. Data safety also became a concern, and we didn't know how unit leaders were holding data. Nonetheless, the main driver was about the amount of volunteer time spent on administration. Just to collect our membership subscription once a year cost 70,000 volunteer hours. The renewal project, well, starting in 2006 until 2010. 2006, let me remind you, no iPads, no iPhones, no 4G. At the start of the project, we had 3 separate databases recording adults, and we set up a selection panel of volunteers and staff, people who had good guiding knowledge and also good IT knowledge. We had a multi-stage bid process, and the success measures and the business case were agreed by the trustees in 2006. Key principles in the business case were around volunteer participation throughout and around reducing bureaucracy with some automation and some standardisation. We worked hard to ensure that trustees understood the scale of the project and how much it would change the organisation. We needed buy-in from the trustees and we needed positive messaging. And to be fair, the trustees did buy in and they did stay positive. We put a lot of effort in the early stages into the business analysis, and rather than just accepting that we had to move everything we had and everything we did across to a system. And indeed, I'm sure it's no surprise to you, but we did discover quite a lot of locally made hoops that people were having to jump through. This was hard going, but worth it in the end. In 2007, the vision was to develop and deliver a reliable organisation-wide information system for girlguiding in the 21st century. And we crystallised the outcomes to focus on 3 areas: processes, people and technology. The project would deliver standardised ways of working to improve the quality of services to members. For people, the project would introduce new roles, new responsibilities, and would change some of the existing internal relationships. And this would be underpinned by technology, standardised processes, new roles, and a more reliable, more accessible, more secure system. I mentioned we had 3 data sources, and we agreed in 2007 to use all 3. 2 had been developed by volunteers, one in Scotland and one in Anglia. There was a huge sense of ownership for those systems, and we chose to involve both of those volunteers in the technological aspects of Project Streamline, not only for their expertise, but also to help ensure that we didn't end up with rogue databases still being live at the end of the project. The discovery phase was proposed by Adapta, who supported us throughout the project, and it proved to be critical to our success. It was a period when we asked the supplier to go out and meet guiders in different roles across the UK and really understand what they were doing. There were 18 sessions where they worked with people carrying out different roles. I have to say this was a bit of a shock to the supplier to have to do this, and I kind of got the impression they'd have rather been in their office working with 1 or 2 people. We did a lot of data definition work running from 2007 through to 2008. Lots of local practice had developed over the 100 years that the organisation had existed. And for example, a couple of examples, we had over 100 titles for people, going well beyond Miss, Mrs, Ms. We had Flight Lieutenant, Reverend, Deputy Provost, and loads more. In another example, we even had to create a whole working group to look at our roles and appointments. All the time we had mixed volunteers and staff working groups so that we could all think the issues through together. We had got 235 roles defined. It's just not practical in a drop-down list. So what do we do with the historical roles? With the things that used to exist, would we put historical data on the system? In the end, we managed to move from 235 roles to 80. And believe me, this was a significant achievement. In 2009, we went live. Actually, we went live 154 times. We went live county by county. Each county had a staff contact person for their go live, and they went live on the weekends unless the county chose otherwise. This implied lots of staff weekend working. 3 pilot counties went live first, and these were counties where somebody from the technology group was a member in that county. We felt that gave us a better chance of managing any difficult situations with the go live. And after go live, we focused on data quality. We created 9 data quality exception reports that could be run at a local level. Data quality improvements were really encouraged by country and region chief commissioners. And indeed, they actually became quite competitive to have the best data quality in their region. In 2010, every unit leader across the UK added girl data to their group. And we had a 3-month amnesty so that adults could add their previous service. This little crew are our lovely stakeholders. All of them held power in different ways. Country and region chief commissioners, they're the lead volunteer for 60 to 90,000 members. They were all on the trustee board of the UK, and they were a powerful group within the organisation. They have both a strategic and an operational role, and each country and region has their own staff, and their chief executives felt under pressure for their roles, particularly the English regions, which, remember, were created for administrative purposes. What would their function be now? What would their jobs be? In a sense, the countries and regions are all power bases in their own right. The operation of the membership subscription system was going to be turned on its head, with money flowing in the opposite direction to which it had traditionally gone. They were understandably worried about their income and the impact in particular on their cash flow. I won't say which one it is, but the UK Treasurer was also a stakeholder. And inevitably, I suppose, the costs increased. The Treasurer supported the project and was a strong advocate throughout. The Treasurer was a steady voice at the Trustee Board. And although the cost was initially estimated at £1.2 million, the Treasurer had always privately expected it to be closer to £2 million. And I have to say, was reasonably understanding up to that point. The last group of stakeholders were unit guiders, a massive group, 60,000 of them, who would ultimately make or break the project because they had to enter the data about themselves and about their girls in their unit. We've seen in other renewal projects, there was a high degree of trust between the unit guiders and the association. There were inevitably some challenging people, let's face it, but on the whole, they want to do the right thing by the association and by the young people in their unit, and they delivered big time. I guess the governance structure is unique to each organisation, and you can see part of ours here. I just wanted to highlight a couple of hidden gems. The Trustee Board met 4 times a year, and this was not frequent enough for us to get the decisions we needed. Also, many decisions were operational in nature, but we knew that culturally, Chief Commissioners would want to be involved. So these weren't the sort of questions to take to the Trustee Board, but what they did get instead was transparent and consistent reporting at every meeting. We had clear delegated decision-making authority for the work streams, which included a financial limit. We agreed to set up a decision-making group. This included 2 country and region Chief Commissioners, 2 volunteers and 2 staff. The group had a call scheduled every week and decided if they needed it or not. They met a lot during the configuration phases and the testing phases in particular. And this group was absolutely essential to helping us manage our timeline. They were a real gem. The other gem was the Streamline Pioneers on the left. These were a group of volunteers and countries and regions staff who acted as champions for the new ways of working. They validated the training material, other support material. They used the test scripts to carry out acceptance testing. They worked with counties to prepare them for go live. And finally, they actually coordinated all the training of unit leaders. Engaging the membership was key throughout. And I don't know if anyone recognises this football stadium, but this is White Hart Lane, guys. And our adult membership filled the Spurs ground twice over. That's how many people we had to train. On the bottom left, we had the pioneers that I just talked about, and we held lots of teleconferences, which were a good deal better than 2 cans and a piece of string. We communicated a lot, and communication was based on being transparent. We held trainings, and more trainings to transfer knowledge. This was the rollout, the training programme. The slide on the right shows the volunteers from the countries and regions, and on the left, this is my favourite photo from the whole project, so I needed to share it today. This is people travelling back to Kirkwall in Orkney after their training for Go Live. But how did we choose what CRM system to have? Well, we had a multi-stage selection process. We wanted to be sure we were comparing apples with apples and not apples with oranges. The various systems could take us in a lot of directions. We were offered so many bells and whistles, but we needed to stay focused on what we wanted and choose the best that we could get within our constraints. 8 companies responded to the ITT, 6 were initially shortlisted, and 2 were taken through to the final stage. We visited places where their systems were being used. We carried out due diligence on the companies, interviews were held, prototypes requested. We had a day where volunteers could come and see the 2 prospective systems. We wanted to make it clear to potential suppliers that volunteers really were going to be involved throughout. So we had a lot of support from Adapta during this period, both in proposing the process for selection and supporting us through it. We held an event on a Saturday just to make the point that volunteers were going to be involved and the supplier needed that flexibility. At the end, though, we did feel we compared apples with apples and we selected one standout product. But what were the challenges? Well, the first one was the supplier, actually. They promised a ready system, gift wrapped with everything, but well, it wasn't entirely like that. The supplier oversold what they could deliver, and they failed to really take the complexity of our requirements on board. In their tender document, the supplier had proposed County Go as a solution to permissions and access rules that we needed, so that local people could see girl data but no one else could, and so that counties and the areas could only see their own data. They struggled to deliver this. They struggled a lot and eventually admitted that when they proposed the solution, they hadn't actually developed the software to do it. The data had to be synchronized overnight between the web-based system and the desktop one, and the overnight synchronization was one of the biggest issues. It took ages to run. Staff were up at 1 and 2 in the morning pressing buttons. It was really poor. Another challenge was the technology companies who seemed to be buying up each other, so they didn't have enough resource to adequately test. And at one point, Girlguiding UK ended up employing 20 people to do testing, plus having an expert user group of volunteers. That said, the volunteer group ended up as a big benefit to the project. The supplier wasn't equipped to do volume testing or security and penetration testing. We insisted on volume testing, and it did happen to a limited degree. In the end, Girlguiding employed a consultant to do the security testing with the supplier and ourselves. And this was pretty challenging because the system supplier didn't want to fix any of the issues the security consultant identified, because the supplier felt that other organisations were using their system without concern. We see here the timescale was a challenge. It had to be rolled out by our centenary, with events starting in September 2009. And in the end, we had to make a compromise. We achieved the date by deferring collecting our subscriptions until 2011, as in we collected them on the old paper-based system. Ways of work. These ways of work were new to us. That was the challenge. We're trying to keep all the parts moving in the same direction, keep everything joined up. It involved massive amounts of volunteer and staff time. We had staff working evenings and weekends, and us volunteers trying to respond to email during our working day. It involved new ways of delegated decision making, and it involved financial risk around subscriptions. The most important thing, though, was that we just kept moving forward. And now we see some of the benefits. This is one of the infographics that they use in Girlguiding Scotland. They make use of the reporting function to tailor charts and help communicate to local teams of volunteers where their priorities should be for planning. Here's another one. There is a big emphasis on growth, not just in Scotland, but across the UK, because currently demand for guiding outstrips supply. We had quite a number of unexpected benefits, which was great. The investment with volunteers throughout meant that actually we got 90% compliance within the first 12 months. We had got their buy-in and they'd given it a big thumbs up. The paperwork mounting had been replaced with time for leaders to get out on real mountains. The countries and regions re-looked at their purpose, and for example, North West England now see their purpose, rather than being administrative, about running events and trainings that a county probably couldn't do. Countries and regions have all moved away from admin and record keeping. The system's being used to provide evidence-based trainings and events. It's used to target newsletters to the right people. It's used to support thanks and recognition of adult volunteering. And we hold an annual membership systems conference to share best practice across the UK and to keep volunteers engaged with upgrades and development. We ended up in a better place than before, and we're still using Go. Project Streamline worked. We're planning for Daughter of Go now. Girlguiding has recently evaluated the system as they look to move to Daughter of Go, and you can see the thoughts of our current CRM manager. At the end, the true cost of our CRM journey wasn't the financial cost, but rather the demand on volunteer and staff time and the energy it needed to make it work. Well, I hope you managed to spot some hidden gems in the slides, and thank you for your time.
Great. Okay, thanks very much, Amanda. So just before we pick up some questions, and Amanda was saying at the beginning that she didn't know why I found it so thrilling. But I'll tell you why I found it thrilling, actually. It's in the work that we do, which, as I say, is with a broad range of different organisations. It's unusual for us to work with an organisation that is so very heavily volunteer-led. And that was the thrilling bit for me, actually. The thrilling bit for me was to work with Girlguiding UK over all those years to bring the benefits of technology and some innovation and change right the way up to where the people are that actually need that benefit, where the volunteers are and where the unit leaders are and the people giving their time to Girlguiding UK. So that was the great bit for me. And I think the important, if you like, message that comes out of that is that the true benefits of organisational change like that really come through when you do deliver something that works better for people where they are. If you don't do that, then all of the ambition for strategic benefit and organisational ambition will never happen. It has to be benefit that starts actually where people are. So I think that's thrilling, actually. And I know that it was a long journey, but I think it's a great one. So, anyway, enough of that. Any questions for Amanda or that you'd like to share in the audience? Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, you obviously couldn't have done this without such a huge amount of volunteer support. Have you ever tried to estimate the financial cost had you not been able to mobilise that many volunteers? Because I'm getting the impression it wouldn't have been possible with your finances otherwise.
I think you're probably right. We didn't make an estimate. It came out in the end at about £2 million, but there was a huge amount of volunteer time. Those of us that were on working groups and also, of course, unit guidance. So I really think we wouldn't have afforded it, but actually I doubt we'd have been successful either, because culturally we really needed to involve volunteers.
And that is a lot of money, and it's a bigger organisation. But I think the message is common, which is that you need to make enough of an investment, particularly in engaging people around the organisation in the change, if you're going to see the new systems and the new benefits realised.